welcome to Cookie Pocket. This podcast is about film.
It is.
Here we are, season 2, and we're all very excited to bring you more content. I'm Christian, joined, of course, by Zach and Mitchell, my two friends and co-hosts. And here we go. Our season debut, we will be discussing Scott Pilgrim versus the World, directed by Edgar Wright, which in theaters was sort of a bomb, but has become something of a cult classic thanks to a resurgence on streaming and sort of a discovery from a new generation of insufferable Gen Z people. Okay, so with that being said, let's get to general impressions. What did you guys think? Ratings out of 5? And yeah, it's good to be back. I hope you're both doing well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing quite well. I guess since I spoke first, I'll give my thoughts on the film.
Yeah, you better.
So this time around, I gave this movie a 4 out of 5, as opposed to last summer when I gave it a 3 out of 5. Yes. But that comes with the caveat that a lot of this movie I don't really enjoy that much. This is probably my least favorite Edgar Wright film, if I'm totally honest. And I give it a 4 out of 5 because it's undeniably well made. It's incredibly well edited and well shot. There's so much effort put into every single moment and every single frame. This is like the perfect graphic novel adaptation. It brings its influences from anime and video games and classic cinema together brilliantly. The cast is amazing. Everything about this movie is basically the best that it could be. But I think because the movie is so much that one thing, it's very easy to not enjoy this movie. I don't blame anybody that thinks this movie is obnoxious or too much or always on or draining, because it undeniably is and can be. I'm sort of drained by bits of this movie and often spend moments saying, okay, let's slow down. But, you know, it definitely perfectly executes what it wants to be. And I think what it wants to be can entertaining. It's just not always entertaining to me.
Sure, fair enough. Mitchell?
If I had to make a movie based off of a dream I had about what 2010 was like, and like try to put that together into like anime, it's like Street Fighter form, and but I was on something when I was making it, and everything accidentally fast forwarded like 1.25. That's basically what happened with this film. Yeah. And yeah. I was definitely like confused a few times. Not like confused like the audience is supposed to be as confused as Scott is, which I appreciate, but more like confused as to where, like, what the end goal is, because sometimes there's constant action and constant like just random crap happening. And it's like, now really my biggest problem, this kind of goes in my biggest problem, but I gave this film a 3.5 out of 5, by the way. And the reason why I was planning on giving it a 4, I knew I wouldn't give it a 3. I knew it deserved more than that. Mm-hmm. But I was comfortable with my, Christian's / mine 3.5s.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of that my biggest problem stems from not only that it's just exhausting for me personally, just to see so many colors and stuff. It's like Fairly Odd Parents I can't even watch anymore because it's just constant noise and things happening. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the speed at which everything happens and the efficiency at which the plot and character development comes out hinders the value of the actual the lessons that the film could be teaching. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the zaniness and just craziness and like otherworldliness of everything is really cool and like is an awesome visual spectacle, especially with how good the cinematography was and the music and things like that, and just the way that I feel like this is like a video game film that was done really well, being an adaptation. But just I feel like just having so much like meaningless things happening kind of just makes me not really care how the film ends. And the film almost acknowledges it in a way because, spoiler, Like the way that it happens with Knives and Ramona at the end, and it's just like I really could not care less either way if he goes with either of them. Whether it's ironic if he goes with Knives or it's comforting if he goes with Ramona, I just don't care anymore. It's like so much crazy stuff has happened at this point. Like if I was a kid, I'd be really happy regardless. So I feel like the film definitely like reminds you it's supposed to, you can be a kid and enjoy this, but like it's just somebody who wanted to appreciate a lot more that the film could have offered. I feel like a 3 out of 5 was justified, and I feel like everything out, like the actual graphic novel adaptation portion of it is basically perfect. Like I've never seen anything like this in that regard. And I think it does all of that extremely well. And the jokes, the humor was actually really good as well. I thought it was kind of funny at a lot of moments. Kind of funny. That's my quote of 2020.
I'll take it, man. I was so worried that you would hate it or that it would be too much like the people that we don't enjoy spending time with.
No, it was wholly natural, totally fine. But like even that, like the natural jokes and stuff, just like the fighting and everything was really cool. But like seeing it so many times in a row, it's like I already know what's gonna happen. Like there's no point in me watching this. I know it looks really good, but that after that, it's like every fight's just like just because it looks really good and was really well choreographed and stuff. But it's like it just degrades the meaning of the film in my opinion. But still a very good film. Highly recommend. Especially if you're like, if you miss the 2010s.
Yeah, totally. I think you guys made a lot of fair points that I mostly agree with. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 because I really like it, and I personally am not exhausted by it for the most part, though I totally understand why someone else might be, and I think everything you guys said is totally applicable. I think, Mitchell, you were sort of going in this direction when you were talking about the fighting and how at some point it becomes like a little bit predictable or like you're going through the motions, I guess. And I do think one of the biggest weaknesses that I realized on this rewatch, which I think is maybe the third or fourth or fifth time I've seen this, was that the first 3 Evil X's, in my opinion, are so much more interesting than the last 4. And like the Katiyanagi twins are totally glossed over and basically just used as a stepping stone to Gideon.
Exactly. I totally forgot about them.
Exactly, yeah.
That was such a flash. Like if you look away for 2 seconds, you just forget the entire
scene. It's a cool scene. Like the speaker, the amp versus amp is really cool, but I totally forgot that they were even Evil X's. Like I thought they were just another challenge on the way to Gideon.
Yeah, you don't even get any backstory from Ramona about their relationship or anything. Yeah. So that was a big weakness. And then the other thing is like every other time I've watched this, I've really liked Scott. I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but I like the character a lot. And this time I just felt awful for Knives the entire time. I just felt terrible for her.
You know who else I feel bad? Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say I also feel bad for Ramona because Ramona kind of just stood around during the Gideon fight, and like the one time she did something, he was like, "No, screw you," and then she falls down the stairs. I'm like, wow, that was like that was painfully demeaning to her. I was like, geez, like that. And I know it's like a part of the story, like she has to be in that kind of role, and I don't feel like she's restricted in that role necessarily. Like obviously she's very independent and things like that, but like it was just for some reason that one scene made me really realize that. I was like, wow, Ramona's like literally just an object being pursued most of the time, which is like, I don't even want to make that realization because I knew that wasn't like, a pushed point necessarily.
There's some really unavoidable, kind of uncomfortable, your princess is in another castle type stuff going on with Ramona in that final fight. And she does show some agency when she takes out her big mallet and starts fighting Knives, but she's fighting Knives. So she's kind of fighting a pointless fight, and it's not really for herself. I would have liked to see her maybe exercise a little more agency to accomplish her own goals in that final battle. But then again, I don't know how much of that is drawn from the original graphic novels and whatnot as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only point in which she's really like, I don't know, I guess assertive would be a word you could use, is when she is basically taking the reins fighting Roxy because Scott doesn't want to hit a girl. And which is fun, I guess. And I also did want to briefly touch on the differences between this and the comic book. Have either of you read any of the 7 books that there are?
No, none.
Okay, yeah, I don't blame you. I've read them once, like 2, maybe 3 years ago, and they're good. highly recommend them. There's a lot more that goes on. Like, there's a whole nother character that's a pretty big love interest for Scott, and it goes into like a little bit into his high school days, and there's more envy stuff, and there's more Kim stuff, and at some point, like, Kim and knives are like kind of a thing, and yeah, there's a lot more going on. But in terms of characterization, they really nail it. The only difference that I thought was really noticeable is in the comic book, Ramona is a little more in both she has this kind of like mysteriousness, and Scott is definitely like drawn by how she doesn't really like talk about herself a lot or doesn't totally feel open. But in the comic book, she's like a little bit more like open to Scott in terms of like being like more flirtatious back towards him, and being like a little bit more of a Zooey Deschanel character than like an antisocial Amazon.ca delivery person. But I kind of like that said. I do like Mary Elizabeth Winstead's approach, and I think it makes more sense because Michael Cera is just so earnest all the time with her. So it would probably be a little exhausting if they were both just like heart eyes at each other the whole time. Yeah. And a big part of this movie, at least for me, in terms of the enjoyment, is the music, of course. Not just Scott's band, Sex Bob-omb, not Sex Bombs, Gideon, get it right. And a bunch of other groups here and there, like we got some synth action from the Kati Nagi twins, and we've got Crash and the Boys, including the girl drummer who's also a boy. And and of course Envy Adams' group Clash at Demon Head. So I wanted to ask you guys, what did you make of the music? What did you make of the soundtrack? And when I ask this question, I mean both like the songs we actually see performed by the characters and the songs that are otherwise chosen to be included in the background. Did they make sense to you? Did they elevate your experience, or were you just kind of indifferent?
I would say
it flowed really well. I stole the reins.
You did, yes.
I think it flowed really well, because if you're like kind of like a semi-depressed, young in your 20s kind of, growing up at that time, and you're kind of into like, 90s kind of grungy, alt-rock, off-tune type stuff, then I think it matched the vibe perfectly. And I think how aggressive it can get and how like loud and thrashy it can be during the fight scenes matches the fight scenes and the tonally and in every other way. I have no criticisms for it. If anything, it definitely helped.
Yeah, I enjoyed the music. I can't say that I was familiar with any of the songs they might have been using. I know that the song that Brie Larson sings, I know is like a song that people like. I don't know. I couldn't say who it would by previously, but I enjoy the music in this film. I think it works. I also like how each of sort of the bands and the artists that perform the music have like their own visual style and a different way they're blocked and filmed in order to be associated with that style. I like how the movie sort of visually associates itself with songs and music in the way that characters move and the way that it's edited. Particularly something I noticed in like the intro. I love the way that he doesn't move like this when he just walks around, but I love the way that when Scott plays, he moves and like poses like a Gorillaz character. Like he like throws his limbs out in like awkward ways and like spreads his legs in like a way that you'd see in like the video to Clint Eastwood or something like that, which I thought was really fun and kind of a nice like animation comic book style detail that you'd see in a typical Edgar Wright film, which is all about kind of clashing those forms of media.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I really love the music personally. Shocker. One of my favorite little notes in terms of like stylistic things is when at the very beginning of the Amp versus Amp, when Scott starts the riff, he leans into the mic and he's like, "This is the beginning of the song," and
I do like that, yeah.
Every time. Yeah. Okay. So in many ways, the plot, I guess, as loose and occasionally meaningless as it may feel, credit to Mitchell's point, the plot is sort of revolving around the evil exes and Scott's pursuit of Ramona and I guess fights between each individual. So I'm getting back into my basic Christian wheelhouse here. Who was your favorite Evil X, and why? And this can mean I'll let you guys decide what favorite means. It could mean your the character you like the most, or the character that did the most for the film for you, or however else.
I would say the one that I remember the most is I think he's the second Evil X, Chris Evans.
Yes,
when
Lucas
he shows
Lee.
up. I like that battle. I like his characterization for one thing. I like a lot of the jokes that are built around it. At one point, they say that they're filming one of his movies in Toronto, and somebody goes, "They make movies in Toronto?" Which is funny as somebody who follows films, because they film in Toronto all the time when they want to cut cost for movies filming in America. And Scott Pilgrim was filmed and set in Toronto, so that adds another kind of meta joke. I also think my favorite character in the film, Wallace, has a lot to do in that scene that I think is really funny. So I think that battle with Lucas Lee is kind of what brings all the characters in the movie together in an interesting way. There's a lot of great jokes at the expense of filmmaking and at the expense of kind of the movie that they're making. So I would say that is probably my favorite Evil X or Evil X scene in the film.
I cannot believe Wallace is your favorite. I never would have guessed that. That
Kieran
is
Culkin
genuinely stunning
makes
to
this
me.
movie for me. I think he's the best thing in this movie for me. I love his performance in this.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think he's great. I just never would have guessed that he was your favorite. That's hilarious. Sorry, go ahead, Mitchell.
I like Matthew Patel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought he was kind of that was when I was like, okay, I've officially declared I have no idea what's going on anymore. And he was the first guy. He really did it in for me with the sideburns and striped shirt. I think that was pretty much it. I think his presentation was the most impactful, because you had no idea how any of this was going to play out, and he really established how the fights were generally going to go. And he had his own bit thing going on, a music. It was almost like a music video for
out of a
2
Bollywood
seconds.
film. Yeah.
With what was it, the demonic something chip?
Demon hipster chicks.
Demon hipster
chicks.
chicks, right? I was like, wow, I'm just really confused right now, and I know I'm supposed to be, so I really appreciate that. In that moment, I thought I remember the entire fight and everything, so it was just very memorable for me, and his performance was really good.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I do think that has the benefit of being the first encounter. And I already said, I don't know if I said that the other thing was the funniest part of the movie, but I do think the genuinely funniest joke to me in the entire film is Scott skimming Matthew Patel's email, and Matthew Patel telling him that he will pay for his insolence. That kills me every time.
I like a girl with hair like this. That's one of my. But in any Edgar Wright movie, you can just talk about the visual gags and the jokes and which ones are your favorite, because there's so many in every single Edgar Wright film.
Yeah. I really need to get on more Edgar Wright stuff. I've only seen this and Baby Driver, and I guess maybe 10% of Ant-Man is his.
We gotta do the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah. Stay tuned, listeners. Anyway, I guess I should answer my own question.
Yes.
I really agree with you guys. I think those two are the strongest. But to give a different answer, I'll say Todd Ingram, the Envy's bass player, and also kind of a cheat answer. But if I were to include Envy, because I guess she is Scott's ex, then I would choose her, because I actually really like Brie Larson's performance a lot, because inauthentic actually makes a little bit of sense for the character.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I had to say it.
Nope.
But I do think it's true. Scott talks about how she used to be called Natalie, and was, I mean, in the most broad sense, used to be a person that was approachable, and instead she's this comically egoistic person now, and it's funny, and then it's actually kind of sad in the falling action following the battle. And which is a really nice touch, because the film rightly focuses on the 7 X's and Ramona story-wise, but we do get at least a touch of the Envy Adams subplot in the comics, I guess.
And they even made a spinoff called Captain Marvel, I think, People do enjoy that.
I would.
We don't talk about that here.
I think the movie does a great job of characterizing her, though, because you want to see more of her. Like, I want to see what happens to her, and I want to see more of her and Scott's relationship. And I also think, I'm getting back to individual jokes again. One of the funniest lines of the movie, though, happens when they're facing X number 3, and the vegan police show up, and they tell him gelato is not vegan. It's milk and eggs, bitch. Like, that's a great line.
Yeah. I love how they literally just their fingers are their guns. Yeah.
Because they're vegan, so they can do whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because it just makes them better than most people.
Yeah.
I guess. Yep. We've already touched on this a bit, but I wanted to mention a little anecdote. While I was watching the movie, my dad sort of came downstairs and watched some of it with me, and was doing some like low-level research on the production, I guess. And two things really stuck out to me. One, like Zach said, this was shot in Canada, and they got a massive tax rebate. Like, like I want to say the budget was like 80 or 90 million, but after the sort of tax acceptances, it was 60. So, oof. And also, apparently, cannot confirm this, but according to this article my dad sent me, apparently the studio execs did not want Michael Cera, but rather wanted Seth Rogen to play Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, no.
Awful. I have no conversation. This is not some deep. This is nothing to do with cinema. I just needed to take a minute where we all commiserated over how awful it would have been.
Would his gay roommate be James Franco?
Oh no, that would have aged so terribly. Oh no.
Just take the cast from the interview.
I could see.
Put it in here.
I could see James Franco in the role of Wallace more than I could see Seth Rogen in the role of Scott.
Yes. I mean, me too.
I really liked Wallace too, by the way.
I think Wallace is great.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to, and of course, I'm sure all of our listeners already know this, but I'll remind those that don't. Zach is a film student, and in many ways is kind of got the book smarts. As I straighten up the glasses that aren't on my nose, the book smarts of cinema. So in terms of Edgar Wright's direction, which really makes the film, I guess, stylistically, but also just as a leader, him putting his foot down and insisting that Seth Rogen not be Scott. Thank God. What sticks out to you in terms of his direction the most? What really characterizes it as an Edgar Wright film? I know we talked about the gags and stuff, but and I guess maybe I'm asking for more nitty-gritty about the technical things that go into it. But
that's a me question?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think for Edgar Wright's style, I think, is very reliant on pop culture. Even his very, very early stuff like Spaced that he did for, I think, ITV on a very, very low budget. It's all about working in those references. It's all about editing to music and to references and to other forms of media. It's very much kind of an MTV style of filmmaking. Where you're incorporating things from music videos or you're incorporating things from video games and really kind of making a clash of all forms of media at once. I'd say in other places his direction has a little more consistency and isn't quite as stylized. Like the Cornetto trilogy. The Cornetto trilogy has a lot of callbacks. That's one thing that really characterizes Edgar Wright. Everything is set up and everything is paid off. Even the littlest things are brought up earlier in some way, shape, or form. Lots of gags in the background. I'd say detail is something that really characterizes it. Like in this film, they are. All right, I'm getting into nitty-gritty technical here. Like you asked.
Bring it on.
There's two types of lenses that you would typically shoot a movie on.
Oh boy.
Typically, you would shoot a movie on either spherical or anamorphic lenses. Spherical lenses create a 16:9 image that you can crop however you want to. There's some kind of distortion around the edges, but it's the typical image that you see when you're shooting something in 16:9. Anamorphic lenses are, how do I describe this? Anamorphic lenses are more cylindrical. So they basically film an image that is rectangular, and then they compress it, and then that image is puffed back out when it's put onto film and projected. So John Carpenter always films on anamorphic lenses. And some of the sort of traits of anamorphic is wide shots have this kind of cylindrical bend to them. And also lens flares have this really streaky blue texture, which is how you can tell that they're filming on different lenses in this, to give a different kind of style to different scenes. So that's another thing in terms of detail for this movie. An Edgar Wright touch. One scene, you're walking along, you're on spherical lenses, it's all normal, and then all of a sudden, the aspect ratio changes, and you've got these great big kind of streaky lens flares that add effect to that one scene, and then we pop back. It's things like that sort of eclecticism and freneticism that I think really mark an Edgar Wright film, and kind of lead them to stand out from other films that might be trying to be movies like that, but aren't willing to go all the way.
Wow, yeah, that was very interesting, honestly. Thanks for that. It is, and now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, from an effects perspective, it doesn't really feel like it's much lower budget than like an MCU movie, I guess, because I mean, they don't really approach effects in the same way, but they never felt like cheap or from an audience perspective ineffective. Like the action always feels like right there, and it's equal parts comic booky and video game-ish, and it all kind of hodgepodges together well. So stylistically, I think that's a huge plus.
Yeah.
All right, that's about all that I have to discuss specifically about Scott Pilgrim. But it being season 2, we've got some new tricks up our sleeves in the form of what I like to call segments, or what others might call bits. But I like to think that we'd all agree that they can be called fun. Haha.
Hey.
Okay. So
I'm going to leave now.
I'm so sorry.
Wait, Zach, is that thing you said, is that going to be on the test next week?
Oh. Yes, this is my college course on filmmaking 101.
Okay.
Yes.
The screen was moving around. I thought that was really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
It's on the syllabus, Mitchell. Maybe if you...
Oh, crap.
You should read ahead.
Wait, how important is attendance? I don't even know. All right, I don't want to take away time. Go ahead, Christian.
That wasn't a segment, but it was a bit. See,
yes.
And it was fun.
And it was fun. Okay.
Season 2! Woo!
Yay. Oh, we take ourselves so seriously here. All right. Our first new segment is what Zach would like to call, or what we'd all like to call, a week in review, I suppose. Zach, do you want to give a brief overview of what this might entail?
Sure. Well, after season 1, I thought, wouldn't it be kind of interesting to discuss other things on the show besides the one film that we're focusing on that episode? So I decided, why don't we introduce this little segment called Week in Review, where over the course of a couple minutes, we can all have a chance to discuss any form of media that we consumed since the last episode, and kind of give a brief discussion about it, what we recommend, what we don't. Others can ask questions about it. Kind of just a chance to throw something out there other than the one single film that we're talking about for the episode.
Totally. Awesome. With that being said, who would like to start? Not it.
Mitchell, did you have something you wanted to discuss?
Yeah. I changed my mind about what I originally decided to discuss. I figured what I'm about to say makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past week, instead of going to sleep at a reasonable time, I have to make sure I get my Hannibal in. I've been watching Hannibal. I'm halfway through season 2. There are 3 seasons. I've never read Red Dragon, but I've read, bits and pieces of it. And I'm like heavily invested in the show now.
Yeah.
I think Hannibal Lecter is probably like the best TV villain I've ever seen, honestly, like pretty much hands down. I think the way that the show handles psychoanalysis and things like that is so intriguing, and not only just because like the murders and the way that they're like planned out and everything are really intricate, and like there's always like a way to psychoanalyze everything. And just the characters in the show. I can't really talk about like specifics about it, but Will Graham is a very intriguing character, and the way that he basically is like fully empathetic, where he can look at every crime scene and instantly think of himself as a murderer. So the show essentially for the first season convinces you that Will is like it's starting to hurt him being a part of the FBI, and being under Lawrence Fishburne's character Jack Crawford.
I didn't know he played Jack. Oh wow.
Yes, and he's very good at it. He's also like one of my favorite characters in the show. And his authoritarian kind of outlook, and his like, he has to make sure he saves lives. He's like focused on saving lives and stuff. And he's constantly pushing Will for each murder, to solve the murder and like figure out who did what. And eventually the murders kind of get to the point where there's a copycat, and that there's murders that are unassociated with the general murders that they're usually trying to figure out at the Bureau. And they have to slowly associate those murders with someone that they know. And just that plays out. And it just it opens up so fast. And there's so much complicated, like, thinking behind every single thing. And there's so many people that have their own interests that get in the way and clash all the time. And seeing Hannibal just be like, Mads Mikkelsen is amazing. Like, he literally, like, he just kills every scene he's in. There's always something he's doing that's so interesting. Like, he's literally, every comment he makes, he's like, oh, don't, like, I'll eat your tongue if you say that again. And then they're like, ha, ha, ha. And he, like, feeds people. He literally has people at his house feeding them. And he's, like, describing it using different languages. High school. So, like, nobody, censor that word, and stuff. So, and stuff. And he just does, I'm so excited, okay? But anyway, he just, every scene is just so interesting. And every episode feels massively important. And the second season just gets even better. But I highly recommend watching at least the first season. I believe it's on Netflix until June 5th. So,
wow. Okay.
Very scary. Nothing happy about it, Christian. I'm sorry. There is no lessons to be learned. Hannibal is just terrible. He's a terrible man.
Wow. I mean, that's a glowing endorsement. I'll have to give it a try with that.
Yeah.
All right. Zach, would you like to educate me on music now or something?
Sure. I just wanted to comment. I've never watched Hannibal. It's been on my list for a while, but I've read all the books, and I do really want to see it. So your recommendation makes me eager to check it out before June. But yes. as Christian so aptly hinted at, I've been really getting into Pink Floyd recently. Over the weekend, I went to my cousin's wedding. Congratulations, Andrew and Alyssa, if you ever happen to listen to this. And on the way, I listened to Pink Floyd's The Final Cut, which is their album right after The Wall, which, other than Dark Side of the Moon, is probably their most iconic album. I know people who don't really enjoy this album that much. They think it's kind of self-centered and overwrought because it's basically Roger Waters, the band leader at the time, wrote it as a concept album about, at the time, Britain was involved in war in the Falklands, and he wrote it as a concept album about what he saw as the betrayal of his father and other people who died in World War II for this idea of, ending global conflict, and now we're just doing it all over again. And I really kind of appreciate that theme as a pacifist. And so I really enjoy the album kind of thematically, but also musically. I get a lot out of it. People have said like it's kind of dull, but and a lot of it is kind of low key, but there's bits on this album, the choruses in particular, where Roger Waters is just belting. There's an amazing saxophone solo on the song The Gunner's Dream that, it gives me chills. I love it. It's really grown on me since the first time I listened to it, because I've listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times now. So it definitely gets a 4 out of 5 from me. And if you have any interest in Pink Floyd, I recommend Wish You Were Here, The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon, but Final Cut I would definitely give a recommendation as well.
Maybe someday. It goes on the list. They're on the long list of artists that I have not listened to enough, to be fair. Do I have anything to contribute to this, really? I don't know. Okay, sure. In much of my time at college, when I need something sort of playing in the background, or while I'm forced to take food back to my dorm for COVID reasons or whatever, I'll occasionally throw on Seth MacFarlane's Crown Jewel Family Guy.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
And Mitchell is very good at the impersonations. By the way,
the show's okay. It's like a 3 out of 5.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you there. And the longer I go, it's really. It very quickly and aggressively becomes like this episode is one of the good episodes, or this episode is one of the terrible episodes. And with the terrible ones, you'll get like 1 or 2 good cutaways, but most of it is just kind of like, oh, oof. But with that being said, Seth MacFarlane is like, he's got this thing where he doesn't know when to say cut. He doesn't know when to end a joke, and that's kind of like, and sometimes that is the joke, as Mitchell would say. And I would occasionally agree, and sometimes it's too much, as Zach would say, and I would also occasionally agree. So and also like, if you're not familiar with Family Guy, it is vulgar. It is it's not for everyone, but it has its moments, and it's good background noise. So yeah, I guess that's what I've been up to lately. Yeah. Okay, segment done. Excellent. We have 2 more segments. Oh my gosh, so much. Yeah, I'm going to let you introduce this one too, Zach.
Okay.
Go ahead, Zach.
So since last season, or specifically since our holiday specials, I noticed that Christian has been really getting into what would be considered the cinematic classics. And I thought, my stars, what a great opportunity for a segment for Cookie Pocket. So I devised this new segment that I call Christian's Magical Cinema Tour. So if Christian has watched a piece of classic media since our last episode, during this segment, he's going to, talk about it and his impressions on it and what he thought of it overall. So Christian, you have something to discuss this week, or this episode, for Christian's Magical Cinema Tour.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
This is so much pressure. Oh my gosh.
Now you know what I feel like in the rundown.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess to start, I'll just kind of give a rough sense of where I am. In terms of what I've watched recently, I've really gotten into Audrey Hepburn quite a bit. I'm a huge fan of her style of performing. It's very like, I guess, like there's a level of innocence and naivete, but it's not it's never marked by like churlishness or being at all annoying or messy or not deliberate. Like there's definitely like a sort of regality to her ignorance, I guess, in the characters that she plays, and it's quite charming. I've seen Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I so desperately wanted to give a 5, but Mickey Rooney kind of just wouldn't let me. And then I saw Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck, and that was terrific. I gave that a 4.5. And I saw Sabrina with Humphrey Bogart, which was also terrific, and I gave all 3 of those a 4.5 out of 5. And she's great in all of them. And I can't wait to watch more. And yeah, I guess I'll try to keep up on my classic watch list for upcoming episodes.
Yeah, just to update our listeners, we might not do this every time. We're not going to put a gun to Christian's head and force him to watch a bi-weekly classic. It's very much depending upon what he decides to watch, but I just thought it would be a fun thing to introduce.
Yeah, totally. And I should mention, before we get to the rundown, that we are, or at least I am, no longer writing my reviews on Twitter. I've moved all of my other thoughts on films and whatnot to Letterboxd, a very fun social media app oriented around all this stuff.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, yeah.
Mini-series and films, I guess you would say, or limited series too. And yeah, I don't know what my username is. That's really bad. But
it's CLM something, I think.
Yeah, okay, then it's probably CLM 24601.
It'll be in the description below the YouTube version of this podcast.
And I successfully bullied Zach and Mitchell into getting it. Now Zach really likes it. You're welcome, Zach. And I believe Zach and Mitchell are also still on Twitter, so you can find them there as well. And I also wanted to make a note of saying Scott Pilgrim is on Netflix, of course, and hopefully I'll be keeping you all updated as to where you can watch the things that we discuss. Yeah. And with that being said, I think it's time for a little something that we like to call the rundown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, where did those sound effects come from?
It's got an updated theme.
Coming out of nowhere.
Steve Harvey.
Okay, let's do this. And to tell, I'm sure everyone that's somehow still here knows the rules to this. But 60 seconds, we berate Zach. He gives us numbers. It means something or it means nothing. We'll let you decide.
Christian
All
thinks
right.
it means nothing. Just full disclosure. Okay. Mitchell is ready.
Okay. I'll start this one. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Having the capacity to geek.
4 out of 5.
Post iMovie graphic design phase.
4 out of 5.
Dating a high schooler.
2 out of 5.
All characters being their own stereotypes.
4 out of 5.
Doing a grindy thingy on a rail.
3 out of 5.
Aubrey Plaza is Aubrey Plaza.
4 out of 5.
Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim.
4 out of 5.
Being okay with not having tea.
3 out of 5.
Sex Bomb.
3 out of 5.
Antagonist sideburns.
4 out of 5.
The origin of Pac-Man as a pickup line.
2 out of 5.
Lucas Lee's Captain America.
4 out of 5.
Brie Larson as Envy Adams.
4 out of 5.
Seinfeld bass riff.
4 out of 5.
The future like with jetpacks.
3 out of 5.
Zach as Ramona Flowers.
4 out of 5. What? 4 out of 5.
Young Neil.
4 out of 5.
Graphic novel as movie.
3 out of 5.
Como who knows everyone.
3 out of 5.
Scott accidentally being a Chad.
3 out of 5.
I'm so sad, so very, very sad by Crashing the Boys.
4 out of 5.
Ramona's hair.
4 out of 5.
Time. Okay.
Yes.
Did we make it through all?
Nice.
Not
Just
quite.
about.
Yeah, we missed like a few of them, but we got the.
Well,
fun
we need
ones.
more for that finale, you know.
Yeah, that was a really nice string of 4s, Zach. I quite appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. All right.
What did you give the... You know what? Never mind.
Yeah, you'll just have to listen and rewind.
Be
Okay.
kind, rewind.
Zach, do you have a preview for us for our next episode?
Yes. So next episode, it's my turn to discuss the film, or to choose the film that we'll be discussing. So we're going to be talking about 1976's Marathon Man, starring Dustin Hoffman. I'll call this a thriller. This is one of those movies that I think it's quite iconic, but I think it's best to go in knowing as little about it as possible. Because there are some very surprising moments, I would say. So I'm not going to say anything more than it's kind of sort of an action thriller, more thriller than action, that stars Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. And that's all I'm going to tell you.
Okay, sounds good to me. This has been Cookie Pocket. This podcast is about film.
Or something.
Or something. I had fun. Hope you guys had fun.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Au revoir.
Bye.